It was one of those typical Los Angeles afternoons where the sun hung heavy over Sunset Boulevard, casting long shadows between the palm trees and storefronts. The air buzzed with the usual city symphony: car horns, distant music from open shop doors, the chatter of tourists and locals weaving through the sidewalks. Sarah Martinez had just finished her shift at the small café on the corner of Sunset and Vine. She was untying her apron when she noticed the commotion outside. Well, not exactly a commotion, more like an invisible force field that seemed to repel people from a particular spot near the dumpster behind the café. "Another homeless guy," muttered Derek, the afternoon barista, peering through the window. "Management's gonna want us to call security again." But Sarah kept watching. The man looked to be in his 60s, with a gray beard that had seen better days and clothes that told stories of countless nights under bridges and in shelters. His weathered hands shook slightly as he rummaged through a torn backpack, and she could see him swaying on his feet. "He looks sick," Sarah said, concern creeping into her voice. "Not our problem," Derek replied, but even he seemed uncomfortable. "Company policy, remember? We're not supposed to." "I know what the policy says." Sarah grabbed a bottle of water from the counter. "But I'm off the clock now." She was about to head outside when a man in a baseball cap and sunglasses approached the homeless man. From inside the café, Sarah couldn't hear what was being said, but she could see the interaction unfolding like a silent movie. The man in the cap knelt down to the homeless man's level. There was something gentle about his movements, deliberate and respectful. He reached into his own backpack and pulled out a bottle of water, a banana, and what looked like cash. "Oh my God," whispered Emma, another customer who had been watching. "Is that?" Sarah squinted through the glass. There was something familiar about the man's profile, the way he carried himself. But it wasn't until he pushed his sunglasses up for a moment that she realized. "That's Leonardo DiCaprio," she breathed. Derek nearly dropped the cup he was washing. No way. What would he be doing here? And without bodyguards? Outside, they could see Leo, still crouched beside the homeless man, speaking in what appeared to be a calm, measured tone. The homeless man, who had been so agitated moments before, was now sitting on the curb, his breathing seeming to slow. "What's your name, friend?" Leo asked, his voice carrying just enough that Sarah could catch it through the open door. "Thomas," the man replied, his voice hoarse and barely above a whisper. "Thomas McKenna." "Thomas." Leo repeated the name like it was important, like it mattered. "I don't know your story, but I know this much: you're still standing. That counts for something." Thomas looked up, confusion and perhaps the faintest glimmer of hope flickering in his eyes. I haven't eaten in 2 days. I was at the shelter, but they're full up. I walked here from downtown, but I think I might be getting sick." Leo gently placed the water bottle in Thomas's hands. "Drink this slowly. Small sips." As Thomas drank, Leo stood and walked toward the café. Sarah quickly busied herself with cleaning a table, trying not to stare as one of Hollywood's biggest stars pushed through the door. "Excuse me," Leo said to Derek, his voice casual but urgent. "The man outside, Thomas, he needs help. Can I buy a gift card? Something substantial?" Derek, still starstruck, fumbled with the register. Yeah, of course, Mr. Just Leo," he said with a slight smile. 500 should be good. And listen," he leaned closer, lowering his voice. "He's not feeling well. He needs to be able to come in here, sit down, get warm food, use the restroom. Not as charity, but as a customer. Can you make sure your staff knows?" Derek nodded enthusiastically. "Absolutely. I'll make sure everyone knows." Leo paid for the gift card and grabbed a blueberry muffin from the display case. "Thanks." He headed back outside, where Thomas was still sitting on the curb, looking slightly more alert after finishing the water. Thomas, Leo said, returning to his crouched position. I've got something for you. He handed over the muffin and carefully placed the gift card in Thomas's coat pocket. This is for the café. You have every right to go in there, sit down, order whatever you want. You don't need to explain yourself to anyone. You don't need to ask permission. You're a customer. Thomas stared at the gift card, then back at Leo. Why? Why are you doing this? Leo was quiet for a moment, and Sarah saw him glance around at the people who had stopped to watch. Because everyone deserves dignity. Because you're a human being. And because... He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. Because I've been lucky in life, and luck should be shared. I used to be someone, Thomas said suddenly, his voice gaining strength. I was a high school teacher. History. 26 years at Jefferson High in South Central. Had a wife, a daughter. Then my wife got cancer, and the medical bills, then I lost the house, then I lost them. Leo listened without interrupting, without looking around to see who might be filming or taking pictures. I know what it's like to lose everything you thought defined you, Leo said finally. In different ways, maybe, but I know that feeling. And I know that the worst part isn't losing the things, it's when people start looking through you like you're not there anymore. Thomas nodded, tears starting to form in his eyes. I haven't had a real conversation with someone in. I can't even remember. Not where they looked at me while they talked. Well, I see you, Thomas. And for what it's worth, teachers are heroes. The world needs more people who dedicate their lives to helping others learn. At that moment, Sarah noticed a man with a camera who had been hanging around the periphery of the scene. She recognized him, Marcus Webb, a freelance photographer who made his living selling candid celebrity photos to gossip sites. Marcus had his camera raised and was trying to get a clear shot of Leo with Thomas. Sarah watched as Leo noticed him too. She expected anger, maybe an outburst, or at least for Leo to walk away. Instead, Leo simply raised his hand and shook his head, a gentle no. The gesture wasn't aggressive or commanding. It was a request, human to human. Marcus hesitated, then slowly lowered his camera. He stood there for a moment, watching the scene unfold, then quietly put his equipment away and walked off in the other direction. Thomas, Leo said, standing up. I need to go, but I want you to promise me something. Use that card. Go inside. Take your time. And if anyone gives you any trouble, you ask for Derek. He's got your back. Thomas struggled to his feet, still clutching the gift card and muffin. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me. Just, when you're back on your feet, and you will be, maybe help someone else who needs it. That's how this works. Leo picked up his backpack and started to walk away, then turned back. And Thomas? I meant what I said about teaching. The world needs teachers. Don't forget that about yourself. As Leo disappeared around the corner, Thomas stood there for a long moment, looking between the cafe and the gift card in his hands. Finally, he walked toward the door. Sarah made sure she was the one to greet him. Hi there, she said warmly. Table for one? We've got a nice spot by the window if you like. Thomas looked surprised by the friendliness in her voice. Yes. Thank you. As Sarah led him to a table, she could see Derek already prepping behind the counter, making sure the coffee was fresh and the pastry case was fully stocked. Can I start you with some coffee? Sarah asked. We just brewed a fresh pot. Coffee would be wonderful, Thomas said, settling into the chair as if he couldn't quite believe he was allowed to be there. And maybe, could I see a menu? Of course. Take your time. Over the next 2 hours, Sarah watched as Thomas slowly relaxed. He ordered the soup of the day, then a sandwich, then a piece of pie. He used the restroom to clean up, and when he came back, she barely recognized him. A good wash had revealed a face that, while weathered, held intelligence and kindness. Other customers began to notice him, not with the dismissive glances from earlier, but with curiosity and even friendliness. An elderly woman at the next table struck up a conversation about the book Thomas had pulled from his backpack. A young father with his daughter gave him a polite nod and smile. "Excuse me," said a voice behind Sarah. She turned to see a well-dressed woman in her 40s. "Are you Thomas McKenna?" Thomas looked up, startled. "Yes? I thought I recognized you. I'm Jennifer Chen. My son was in your AP history class at Jefferson, Michael Chen." This would have been about 8 years ago. Thomas's face lit up. "Michael. Of course, I remember Michael. Brilliant kid. How is he?" "He's amazing. He's finishing his PhD in history at UCLA. He always said you were the teacher who made him love learning. He said you made the past come alive." Sarah watched as Thomas straightened in his chair, a spark returning to his eyes that must have been dormant for years. "Would you mind?" Jennifer hesitated. "Could I call him? He'd be thrilled to know I ran into you." I'd love that. But I should probably tell you, I'm not teaching anymore. It's been a difficult few years." Jennifer's expression softened with understanding. "Mr. McKenna, my son talks about your class at least once a month. You changed his life. That doesn't stop mattering just because life gets hard." She pulled out her phone. "Michael? You're not going to believe this." Sarah had to step away as she felt tears forming in her eyes. She looked around the café and noticed that several other customers were watching the reunion with smiles on their faces. Even Derek, usually cynical about everything, was grinning as he wiped down tables. An hour later, as Jennifer was getting ready to leave, she pressed something into Thomas's hand. "Michael wants to meet you for coffee this weekend. He's working on his dissertation about urban education reform, and he'd love your input. This is my card, please call us." After Jennifer left, Thomas sat staring at the business card, then at the gift card from Leo, then around the café where he'd spent the afternoon being treated like a human being again. Sarah approached his table. "More coffee?" "Actually," Thomas said, "I think I should probably go. I don't want to overstay my welcome." "You're not," Sarah said firmly. "But if you need to go, you need to go. Just remember, you're welcome here anytime." Thomas stood up, and Sarah could see he was struggling with something. "Miss," he said finally. "The man who helped me earlier. He didn't just give me money or food. He gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever." "What's that?" "The feeling that I still matter. That I'm still a person worth knowing." Thomas's voice cracked slightly. "I haven't felt that in 3 years." 6 months later, Sarah was working the morning shift when she heard a familiar voice. "Excuse me, could I get a large coffee and one of those blueberry muffins?" She looked up to see Thomas, but barely recognized him. He was clean-shaven, wearing a neat button-down shirt and slacks, and carrying a leather satchel instead of a backpack. "Thomas. Oh my goodness, you look amazing." He grinned. "I feel amazing. I wanted to stop by and thank you, all of you. Not just for that first day, but for how you treated me every time I came in." "Are you back on my feet?" "Getting there. I'm substitute teaching at a few schools in the district, and I've got an interview next week for a permanent position. I moved into a studio apartment last month, nothing fancy, but it's mine." Sarah beamed. "That's incredible. I'm so happy for you." "The crazy thing is," Thomas continued, "that young man, Michael Chen, he's been helping me get back into teaching. Turns out his connections in the education department were exactly what I needed. It's like everything connected from that one day." As Sarah prepared his order, Thomas looked around the café. "Is that actor, Leo, does he ever come in here?" "I haven't seen him since that day," Sarah admitted. But you know what? I don't think he expected to see you again either. I think he just saw someone who needed help and helped them. Thomas nodded. I wrote him a letter. I don't know if he'll ever get it, but I had to try. I wanted him to know that those 10 minutes changed my entire life. Not just because of the money or the gift card, but because he reminded me that I was still worth something. That I was still Thomas McKenna, not just another homeless guy. Did you send it? I gave it to one of the assistants at his production company. Who knows if it'll ever reach him? Thomas shrugged. But it felt important to try. To close the loop, you know? 3 weeks later, Sarah was closing up the cafe when Derek called her over to the counter. Package came for you, he said, holding up a small envelope. Weird though, it's addressed to the angel barista at the Sunset Cafe who helped Thomas. Sarah opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a note written on simple white paper. Dear Sarah. Thomas gave my office your name. He told me about the kindness you and your coworkers showed him, not just on that first day, but every day after. He said you treated him like family, and that meant everything to him. I wanted you to know that Thomas is thriving. He got the permanent teaching position, and from what I hear, he's inspiring a whole new generation of students. But more than that, he's helping other people experiencing homelessness in his spare time. He volunteers at the shelter where he once stayed, and he started a program connecting housed and unhoused people through shared interests and skills. You probably don't remember me, I was just some guy in a baseball cap who stopped to help someone. But you and your team at the cafe were the ones who gave Thomas a place to belong again. That matters more than any money ever could. Keep being the kind of person who sees everyone's humanity. The world needs more people like you. With gratitude. LD. P.S. Thomas asked me to tell you that he's getting married next month to a woman he met in a book club at the library. Turns out, love finds you when you remember who you are. Sarah had to sit down. She read the note 3 times before it really sank in. Derek peered over her shoulder. What is it? Remember that day 6 months ago? The homeless man and Leo? Yeah. Thomas, the homeless man, he's a teacher again. He's getting married. And apparently, he's helping other homeless people now. Derek shook his head in amazement. All from 10 minutes on a sidewalk. No, Sarah said, folding the letter carefully. From people choosing to see each other as human beings. Leo just started the chain reaction. She looked around the cafe, their little corner of the world where, for a few hours each day, people from all walks of life sat together, shared space, and sometimes even shared stories. You know what? She said to Derek. We should put up a community board. Let people post if they need help or want to help others. Nothing formal, just a way for people to connect. Derek smiled. I like that idea. Think it'll work? Sarah thought about Thomas, about Leo, about the woman who recognized her old teacher and the ripple effects of kindness that were still spreading outward, reaching people she'd never meet. I think people are better than we give them credit for. They just need someone to remind them sometimes. A year later, the community board at the Sunset Cafe had grown to take up an entire wall. It was covered with thank you notes, offers of help, success stories, and connections made. The cafe had become an unofficial community center, hosting everything from book clubs to job interview workshops to support groups. Thomas stopped by regularly, often bringing some of his students to do homework or work on history projects. He'd become something of a local celebrity, not as a former homeless man who'd been helped by a movie star, but as a teacher who was changing lives and building bridges between different parts of the community. Sarah had been promoted to manager and was working on expanding the community programs. She never forgot the lesson of that day, that sometimes the most profound changes start with the simplest acts of kindness. And sometimes, late in the afternoon when the light hit Sunset Boulevard just right, she would look out the window and remember that moment when a famous actor knelt on a sidewalk and reminded everyone watching that every person deserves to be seen, to be heard, and to be treated with dignity. That was the real magic of that day, not that a celebrity helped a homeless man, but that it reminded an entire community of the humanity they all shared. The 10 minutes that changed everything weren't just about Leo and Thomas. They were about all of them: Derek, Sarah, Jennifer, Michael, Marcus the photographer who chose not to take the picture, and everyone who witnessed or heard about what happened. They were about choosing to see each other, to help each other, and to remember that everyone has a story worth knowing and a life worth living. And in a world that often felt divided and harsh, that was everything. Thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoy this video and learned a lesson. I would be grateful for your likes. Also, don't forget to subscribe and comment on the video. See you soon.